We are here today, as has been mentioned by both the Director General and the President of IIA Ghana, to formally unveil the new global standards for our profession and to commemorate the coming into effect of the standards in Ghana and indeed globally. The timing of this launch is both timely and extremely necessary, given that the world that we live in, fully occupied with the perils and mysteries of emerging technologies, robotics, advanced artificial intelligence, and machine learning, has also been infested, to put it mildly, with a growing and seemingly uncontrollable risks, which themselves are behaving like viruses, continually metamorphing into new risk variants. I am therefore proud to hold high the head of our affiliate IIA Ghana and that of the agency for their extraordinary advocacy in bringing these standards to reality at the same time as the rest of the world. It takes determination, foresight, courage to join the global fraternity on this special day. Through the effective application of these new standards, internal auditors in Ghana and around the world will be able to deliver and remove all doubt about their professionalism, competencies, as well as expand the horizons of their audit coverage. No doubt, the key traits of precision, accuracy, comprehensiveness, adequacy, flexibility and adaptability, skillfulness, objective and ethically sound evaluation of scenarios will find expression in the quality of communications and reports that our internal auditors will provide. The path has been set. It now behoves on the management of institutions to grant the internal auditors the space and conducive environment to work. The value proposition is a two-way street. Appreciating and investing in capacity development is a core necessity for and to institutional managers. These standards provide the positioning of the players, but cooperation and support fully provides the team dynamics necessary for expanding the usefulness and effectiveness of the internal audit function. I know we will not be let down.
When the internal auditing had been done properly, clearly it will enhance the organization's ability to succeed, and also it will improve upon the governance, risk management and control framework within every entity. Because internal audit function normally relies on data which are being analyzed and conclusions drawn on for management consideration, clearly it will enhance decision making and then the oversight responsibility of every board and senior management. When that happens, stakeholders have confidence in the sector in which the internal auditor operates. So it brings about credibility and reputation of those functions. And then the public, who are owners of state enterprises, they become happy and they are satisfied so far as that is concerned. And that is domain one. Domain two dwells on ethics and professionalism, and it constitutes the behavioral expectation for professional internal auditors, so that the entities that provide internal audit function, they will see their internal auditors behaving ethically. So there are 5 key specific values that have been highlighted in the standards. All internal auditors are expected to demonstrate integrity by being honest of whatever they do and having the courage and also living a life that is legal and of ethical behavior. The second value is for all internal auditors to maintain objectivity at their individual level and even safeguard that objectivity. And where the internal auditor thinks that it is impaired, the internal auditor will have to disclose it in his report. The internal auditors are also expected to demonstrate competency in the work that they do through continuous professional development, and also they have to exercise due professional care in conformance with the standards that we are adopting, and also they have to maintain confidentiality. In the work of the internal auditor, they use information, so the use of that information should be highly confidential, and they need to protect that confidentiality of the information. Domain 3 talks about governing the internal audit function. Clearly, the chief audit executives are expected to work closely with the board to establish the internal audit function and position it independently. And senior management should also recognize their role to support the board. So the authorization of the board is to maintain the internal audit through the mandate of the internal audit function that is established in its audit charter, and also ensure that the internal auditor is positioned independently and ensure that the internal auditor works effectively. That is the domain 3. The domain 4 is managing the internal audit function, where the chief audit executive or the head of every audit function is expected to plan its work strategically, manage financial, human, and technological resources very well, and communicate effectively so far as all key stakeholders of the internal audit function is concerned. And the last principle in this domain is to maintain quality of work. So the internal audit function is supposed to subject itself to internal assessment as well as external assessment. The last domain is about performing the internal audit services, where the internal auditor is expected to plan its work effectively, conduct the engagement in line with the standard or what had been prescribed, and also communicate. And it highlights on a close collaboration between the internal audit function and all its stakeholders. Clearly, we are happy about the effort of the internal audit agency since the global audit standards were published last year. DJ has already mentioned being the first in the world to adopt it, the training of the public sector entities.
The Internal Audit Agency had already issued a public statement announcing Ghana's adoption of these standards for the practice of public sector internal audit in Ghana. And that release drew great applause from around the world. We had a lot of comments from people across the world, from North America, from Europe, from Asia, reaching out to Ghana and asking, you've already adopted, and we said yes. Our public sector regulator has already adopted them. That act has contributed to placing Ghana within the high pedestal that it has always occupied in various circles. I guess DG already hinted at this, considering the times that we are in at the moment. These and many more are the fruits that the effective implementation of the global internal audit standards promise to deliver. We are confident that as these global internal audit standards come into force today, senior management and board members of various organizations will play their parts as demanded by the third domain of the standards, so that auditors can perform their roles without fear. We are also calling on regulators to support internal auditors within their sectors to apply the standards, and also for them to rein in errant executives. The Institute of Internal Auditors Ghana is partnering with the Internal Audit Agency to speed up the professionalization of internal audit practice in Ghana, and also encourage all and sundry to reach out for support on how to properly implement the global internal audit standards. May this event mark an inflection point which further magnifies Ghana's position as a lofty, shining, and ever-rising star of Africa, and I dare say, even in the world.
Just finished with the launch of the coming into effectiveness of the 2024 Global Internal Audit Standards. In my speech, I highlighted the role that Ghana played in the developmental stage of the standards, and I pointed out that the Internal Audit Agency, the Institute of Internal Auditors Ghana, as well as other key stakeholders in Ghana, submitted comments when the standards were being drafted. The reason for it was for us to reflect Ghana's expectations of the kind of internal audit standards that the world should be working with. So the standards that we've launched today came into existence or were released for use on 9th January 2024, as we all heard, but we had 1 year space within which to prepare ourselves to transition onto the new standards, and today they've come into being. If anybody says that these are standards developed elsewhere and given to us to use, let it be known today that we have been a part of the process of developing these standards. We are adopting them today because we think that Ghana should also be using standards, or should do our internal auditing in accordance with the standards of the world. These are the same standards that are being used for internal audit practice across the world. What this launch signifies is that Ghana is moving at the same pace as the world, and our aim would be for the output or the results from the use of these standards to improve Ghana's stakes. That is why I'm happy that DG is saying that management and senior leaders should give support to internal auditors to do their work. Everything we are doing here, whether standards or laws, if we do not have commitment from management, we say will not draw the results that we need or the benefits that we are expecting. These standards are not just for public sector practice. We also hear about private organizations complaining about the conducts of their people that are not satisfactory or that are not acceptable. Probably it's because they've not had internal audit practices in their organizations. We are urging all organizations, private or public, to make good use of internal auditors. They are professionals who have standards that govern their practice. They have practice guidelines that are supposed to help them to do their work. And if organizations commit themselves to operating quality or good internal control systems, they would get the kind of results that we want. We want to see this opportunity as a mindset change opportunity. We should look at what we can do by way of internal auditing to be at a global standard level. So too should our thinking be that we should use this practice to encourage each other to conduct ourselves in such a way that we would be exemplary for the world. Ghana has a great potential, and we can only do that when we adopt excellence, which is signified by these standards as our yardstick. And when we do that, we'll be able to uplift Ghana and make Ghana the kind of country that we all want to.
First countries in the world to adopt the standards for application in the public sector internal audit. We adopted it on the 22nd of February 2024. That was the day on which the board chairman of the Internal Audit Agency signaled national adoption of the standards. The significance of today's event attests to Ghana's commitment to uphold best practices in public sector internal auditing for improved financial management. Ghana, being among the first countries to adopt the new standards, did not rest after adoption because we were given 1 year to prepare the public sector for implementation. Even though the Institute of Internal Auditors Global encouraged earlier adoption, but Ghana, we decided to give ourselves 1 year to prepare so that we will be able to flow with the rest of the world. As our new president resets the Ghanaian economy through accountability and reduced corruption and related policies, we cannot but reposition the internal audit practice to support this agenda by strengthening control systems and structures with the adoption of these new standards. Today's event signifies that, indeed, Ghana is open for business again. Public sector internal audit practice in Ghana can rub shoulders with similar practice across the world. Indeed, in 2023, the Internal Audit Agency and its contribution to public sector internal audit practice was adjudged the best in sub-Saharan Africa and the Asian countries at the Open Governance Partnership in Estonia.
Despite this, the disjoint management of internal audit in the public sector, disparities in the conditions of service of internal audit professionals, delays in amending the Internal Audit Agency Act to align it with ongoing PFM reforms, overemphasizing on conventional pre-auditing instead of risk-based audit, non-automation of public sector internal audit practice, professional abuse of internal auditors through intimidation, resource denials, transfers, and postings continue to affect public sector internal audit practice in Ghana. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. With the adoption of these new standards, with support from our development partners, the World Bank, the European Union, and the GIZ, we can confidently say that we have put in place a system to move Ghana's public sector internal audit from conventional pre-auditing to a full-scale risk-based audit, to the extent that we are currently reviewing the risk-based internal audit manual for public sector institutions, and it will be issued in January 2025.
To be in line with the global standards. We adopted it in February 2024. But the standards gives room for preparation before effectiveness. So we had 1 year to prepare the public sector to enable them fully implement the standards. Though the standards acknowledges earlier adoption, we decided to go with the standard adoption date of 9th January 2025. So today is an important date in the life of the global internal audit standards, and in Ghana we join the rest of the world to celebrate the effectiveness of the global standards. The effectiveness to us means that going forward, every internal audit practice in Ghana, both in the private and the public sector, is expected to be conducted in accordance with the global internal audit standards. What it means is that if you are an internal auditor in Ghana and you are practicing, your practice is like any internal auditor practicing anywhere in the world. The other advantage is also that it helps us to improve control systems in the public sector and to give an assurance to all stakeholders that the control systems are solid. When funds are sent to the various public institutions, it can be used for the intended purposes. For us at the Internal Audit Agency, we collaborated with the Institute of Internal Auditors to make input into the exposure draft. Once it has been issued, we are collaborating with them to also implement it, especially during training for the internal auditors, preparing manuals and preparing the systems. At the Internal Audit Agency, what we have also done is to cause a revision of the internal audit charters of all public sector institutions. So now, every public sector institution has an internal audit charter which is in line with the global standards. You would agree with me that the public financial management cycle starts with planning, accounting and reporting, auditing, and then procurement. All these cycles are automated. Public sector internal audit practice is also being automated and being in line with the global standards. So to cut it short, today, public sector internal audit practice in Ghana aligns with global standards, and we are rubbing shoulders with the world. We are among the first to adopt the standards, and we are also among the first to implement it.